And then they can be converted, and when you want to do beauty renders and stuff, generally they're converted when you bring them into Max. So you can load the CAD files directly because it's built into Max now, but sometimes you have to convert them before you can set up proper shaders on them, say in V-Ray. Yeah, but there is a lot of 3D software. No one can learn it all. There's no need to learn it all, really. My advice has always been, and this was the same when I was in game development, you used to have guys asking all the time, oh, should I learn how to be a character artist and an environment artist and a technical artist and an animator? And the guys were trying to learn to do all of that at once. And my advice has always been, you're better off being expert at one thing. So, you know, instead of being a jack of all trades, master of none type of thing. So I specialised in environment design and technical art in game development. And I completely ignored character animation and character rendering, character creation, anything like that. So if you're really interested in making a career out of 3D, it's always better to specialise in an area than try and learn everything, because you won't be able to. And if you can, you're not going to be great at everything. You're better off sticking to the thing that you're good at and that you like and trying to learn it all. The drawings where I work at... the drawings are done with AutoCAD, yep. Oh, you're in the mining industry. Sandstone, but you're in the shop now. Oh, well, that's, you know, interesting you say that, because I've done work for the mining industry as well. Not to do with architecture visualization, not to do with game development, but to do with the photogrammetry side of things. They use photogrammetry to get an overall aerial 3D view of mine sites and things. So I've done that sort of work. Not a lot of it, but some of it for mining companies here. Mainly ArchViz for me though now. Well, that's good. You don't need to mess with characters or animation. If you enjoy architecture and landscape, then concentrate on architecture and landscape. Don't try and learn every piece of 3D software, because it's not necessary. Generally, if you know one, then you can pick up the others. They're all pretty much the same. And like I said, you're better off, you don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. You've got to concentrate on one and do it really well. It's always the best way. That's what I've always suggested to people. So, regardless of what that is, if that's character animation or character art or environment art, concentrate on that, on the one thing. Yeah, you make architectural sandstone columns. I love sandstone. The look of it, that is. I often try and use it whenever I can when I'm 3D modelling. The texture of it. Texture map of it, I should say. Yeah, it's beautiful stone. Because I've done... what I do now mainly in ArchViz is we do a lot of heritage work. So a lot of 3D modelling of heritage buildings, and so there's quite a bit of sandstone involved there. So I've modelled sandstone quite a bit. I'm always interested in heritage. So let's just pull out and have a bit of a look here to make sure that we're not getting any repetition, and we're not. You know, Blender's great. There's no, you should be fine with using Blender. It's a great piece of 3D software, it really is. Yeah, particles are fun. That's exactly right. Blender is a fine piece of 3D software. You don't need anything else. and you get the basics down in Blender, and you can then use any other 3D piece of software that Studio might be using. So just learning the basics is important. So get really familiar with Blender because it does everything you need. You'll learn what you learn in Blender, you can then take into other 3D software and apply. So learning Blender is a good way to go. And even if you never use another piece of 3D software but Blender, then Blender is perfectly capable of doing virtually anything you can do in any other 3D software. So okay, this one's already attached. Don't ask me why these ones weren't and this one is, but there you go. Biggest thing you have a problem with is why I want other software if I don't just exporting to other file formats. It's not the default format. You don't trust exporting a blend file to a 3ds file without errors. Again, I haven't used Blender for a while anyway. I haven't had much to do with Blender at all. No, I get what you mean. That's cool. I mean, I miss keys when I type into chat, so that's fine. I can pick it up. I know what you're saying. You don't trust exporting a Blender file, 3D file, into 3ds, say, without errors. I don't know. It probably has improved. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I didn't know that was a problem with Blender. Can you export in another file format aside from the Blender file format, like OBJ? Because generally with OBJ they should be able to get that right. That's a pretty old format now. Why were they all unattached? Why were they all unattached? ONAG. They were unattached because I created 3 separate pieces. So I created an end piece, a middle piece, and mirrored the end piece for that side when I created the model. And generally what I do then is I'll group these 3 together and then I'll copy the group around. I don't know why this one is all attached when these ones aren't. I don't know what was going on there. It must have been something I was doing at the time. Yeah, I know what you mean. On my model, yeah. Generally, yeah, because the model was created in 3 pieces. Once I create the 3 pieces, I group the model with the group command. And then I can just select it and copy it around. Well, when I'm doing the initial layout stage before I do any texturing. So that's why they're all unattached, because I could have attached them at the time and it probably would have been just as easy to do it that way. But when I'm doing the initial layout, I generally don't like to attach model pieces together in case I want to change it. So it's when I'm creating the design, before I start doing any texturing at all, when it's all just basic, white or pink or grey geometry, I try and avoid doing any attaching in case I want to move things around and change the design up a bit. And that's why they're not attached now. You can export to OBJ, but when you were modelling Fallout 3, you had a friend that used Max. You exported a file for him that didn't export right at all. It was hit and miss. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they probably fixed that by now. Like I said, OBJ has been around for a long time. It's a standard format. There should be nothing really in Blender that causes a problem exporting as OBJ. Which you'll notice when I do my work and I export these and bring them into Mari, I always export them as OBJ. Even though Mari takes FBX and Max can export FBX. And FBX is pretty good now too. I generally stick to OBJ because it's been around for so long. ONAG, are you attaching it to the wall or to the 3 pieces to themselves? I'm attaching the 3 pieces at this stage to themselves while I do this texturing. Once I've finished texturing everything up, including these columns, then I'm going to save this file as all unattached pieces. And once I've saved a version here that's all separate unattached pieces, Then I'm going to attach everything together with the exception of maybe these statues, because I want to leave it so that if people buy the model, they have the option of just using one of these on their own or removing them and putting something else there and up here. So yeah, I'll save a version with everything unattached, and then I'm going to save a new version, which is the one that I'll export and bring into View to do the beauty renders of everything attached together except the statues. So when I do the attach, everything will be attached. So these will be attached to the wall as well as everything else. It'll all be one mesh. But at this stage, before I do the final attach, I'm just attaching it to themselves. So there's all those three pieces just become one support.
The setting could hardly be more perfect.
Blender can export FX as well.
New vision for the world. An unparalleled blending.
Okay, Lightwaves format, yeah. I know some people have had problems with Lightwaves format. I created a plugin for 3D Studio Max to convert animated plants from Speed Tree into Eon View, and that uses the Lightwave format when you do the export, because View at that stage couldn't do FBX and it can now. So now I'd recommend doing animated FBX, but at the time it couldn't, so I created a plugin for Max that would convert the model over, and it would then save it out as a Lightwave file, which you'd import into View to do an animated plant. But again, I wouldn't recommend it anymore. You're better off using FBX or OBJ. It's used in a lot more software now. And yeah, NAG, like I said, at this stage, three pieces are being attached together. Once they're all textured up, then they'll all be attached as one mesh. After I save a version out that's all separate pieces, in case I ever want to go back and change something. I know you can always select and detach once you've attached an object, but it's easier and better to keep a separate file. Which is what I'll do. But everything will be one model, so that when we bring it into Eon View, people can move it around easily, and if they want to move it to render it. And again, this intersection, all that will be fixed up at the end here once I go over the model and start correcting all these little problems, like it being inside the wall there. But at this stage, I'm more concerned with just texturing everything out. I'm going to go into isolation mode so I don't accidentally select something to attach that I shouldn't. Yeah, and like I said, one piece here, that then was mirrored to this side, and then I created a separate piece for the middle to make the model. So that's why it's in three separate pieces here. And that was done because in case when I was doing the layout, I wanted to change it at all, make it different. It was just easier for me not to have it attached at the time. At the design phase, put it that way. Again, we're going to our utilities and channel info, and we're going to copy our UVs across. And we're going to jump into our material editor and move on to our next material here. See, I have those three selected. I could go here. There's a collapse modifier which will collapse them all into one. I don't trust it though. I've had problems with it before, so I always prefer to do it manually. It may take an extra few seconds initially, but you'll save yourself a lot of time if the program crashes or things don't work the way you think they're going to. So even though you think this takes longer, I've found that usually it's the safest way to go in the long run. Okay. You notice too that they're edit meshes and they should always be edit poly, so that was my bad when I created the mesh. Well, an edit poly gives you basically a lot more options to work with the mesh, which is why I always suggest you go into edit poly mode. I mean, they're both meshes, editable objects, 3D objects, but with edit poly, you have a lot more control over the polygons and the vertices and smoothing groups and that type of thing than you do in edit mesh mode. So that's why you should always go into edit poly. You'll find if you're doing game development, though, like the Unreal Engine, that will you can save an edit poly and bring it into Unreal, but Unreal will convert it to an edit mesh. Edit poly is for quads as well, and edit mesh is more for triangle. So, but you'll find, like I said, if you work in edit poly mode, export your model as an FBX, say, and bring it into Unreal. Unreal will convert it to a mesh anyway, because it triangulates the model. But edit poly is better for quad meshes and things like that, as well as many more options to work on the model itself, which is why you should always work in edit poly mode initially. If you use an array to make all those little supports, does it use all the same material, or do you have to assign a material manually to each one? If you use an array to make them, well, all an array is taking one object like this and then copying it around a set pattern. In that case, they're all going to have the same texture as the first one in the array. So yes, it would use the same material in an array, yeah. And then you'd have to go in and individually change the texture maps like we're doing here anyway. But this model wasn't really suitable to work with an array anyway, because it's not it's an odd shape. Parts of it you could have, but other parts of it you couldn't. So, and as I was saying too, with a lot of these things, to make things look believable and real, don't make them too perfect. And in an array, you're going to have perfection. It's going to be exactly the same distance apart. It's going to be on exactly the same level. And a lot of times what 3D guys now will do, modelers will do, is they'll go in and they'll purposefully misalign, say, one of these metal barriers. They'll angle it slightly to the side just to make it look less perfect and more believable. So while an array again can save you time, it makes things really perfect. And if you want believability, you're better off just moving things slightly by hand so it looks more natural. So it looks like somebody's actually physically had to build it, and not a computer has generated it all for you. You can use the array initially to get the layout, but then I'd recommend going in and just tweaking angles and positions slightly to make things look more natural. Three-day trial for Max. I thought they would have had at least a 30-day trial now. I'm pretty sure you can get a 30-day trial for Max if you want to check it out. Unless you meant 30-day trial and just missed the zero and cat, in which case cool. Yeah, it's 30-day trial. Yeah, so I hope it does make sense. You can use an array. It will lay things out for you perfectly initially. But then I'd always recommend going in and making some slight tweaks to it, so it's not, everything is not exactly the same, just for believability. 30-day, yeah, that's what I thought. That's cool. And again, it's just these little things, these little tweaks that you make to parts of the model so that they're all centered slightly, they're angled slightly, they're just a little different from the one next to it. That will really help sell the believability of your model. It's subtle and small but important, because the human eye can pick up things a lot better than people give it credit for, and it will notice that something doesn't look quite right, and it's generally because everything's too perfect or too clean. Which is why I've always harped on while I've been creating this model that it lives outside, it's going to get weathered and it's going to get dirty. Make it dirty. Don't make it perfectly clean. And that goes the same for architectural visualization if you're doing an interior. Say a kitchen countertop, a marble countertop, it's not going to be completely clean. Even if you clean it, there's going to be dust, there's going to be variation in the marble. So you've always got to add a little bit of what's the word? It's not a production line. You've got to add a little bit of wear to it. Even newly built things will still have a bit of dust and wear and variation. So. And that's generally, like I said, where a lot of people come undone. They just forget about that. They want to make it perfect, because the computer can make things perfect. Imperfections, that's the word. Thanks, First Dawn. That is exactly the word I was after. Yes, those imperfections are important for believability. If you wanted to not be, I don't know, maybe if you're designing some really high-tech sci-fi thing, perhaps perfection, but even then there's going to be slight imperfection. Generally, you don't ever want to go for perfection, because nothing is ever perfect. Nothing real, anyway. Okay, let's move to this texture here. And again, we're going to come back and fix that. Anyone watching that maybe missed what I've been saying, don't worry about that intersection. I will go over the model at the end and we'll fix all those little bits up. I could do it now, but I prefer to do it at the end. That way I can get a proper overview of the model and look at it in its parts. That'll help me then if I did, in case I want to change something. So as I go around the model and go over it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure everything's correct, I'll also be assessing the color and texture maps to make sure everything blends together properly. And that's best done at the very end. Z fighting where? You're talking about here? Cena J? Nadja? Cena G. Cena G. You're talking about this here? That's just intersecting the wall. It needs to be brought forward. Yeah, no, that simply is, the model is too far back and it's intersecting the wall. Once, like I said, once I've textured everything up properly, I will go over and fix all those things up. But yeah, not Z-parting, it's just intersection, that's all. It's too far back into the wall. We will fix that right up though, in just 1 second. Well, once I finish texturing the columns up, because that's the last thing left to texture, before I bring in 2 more statues for up here, and then start growing some flowering ivy on it to soften it up a bit. But before I do that, then I'll go around and fix these little areas once I finish texturing everything else. Onaji. You guys. Onaji. Okay. I live on coffee. So you were saying that your name, Onanji, it means same in Japanese. Cool. Are you from Japan? You're talking about names. First Dawn is fine. I think it's pretty clever. F1R5. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. It's just me, my dyslexia. I can't read people's names. That's why mine just says PhilDoes3D. I mean, yeah. I can't live without coffee. I need it. Like I said, it keeps me up working late into the night, so it's a must-have. But yeah, and I like your name, first of all. It's just me not being able to read people's names. Has nothing to do with your usernames, guys. It's just me. So it always helps that you guys tell me. You're worrying about getting your identity stolen? Well, that's always a problem, but when I set up my Twitch channel, I'd already been online with my 3D stores for many years, and my name is out there, so as long as I don't get too much of your personal information, you should be fine. Well, no. The number threw me for pronouncing it, I have to admit, but that's just me. And if first storm was taken, then yeah, not much you can do really. But I think it's quite clever. But yeah, the 5 threw me as being not an S, but that's just me. So don't take that as everyone having that problem. It's probably just me. Again, we're going to make it an edit poly before we do the attach. Well, remember to always turn the attach off, otherwise you'll end up attaching things you don't mean to. And again, we're going to copy our UVs across. I guess that's a problem with Twitch too, because it's been around so long. A lot of people have taken a lot of names, so yeah. Oh really? Well, that's a bummer if they've taken your name that you used for video editing, because once you establish an online identity, it's important to try and keep your name. I know how important it is. Yeah, I know 20 different names on different sites. When you're trying to build a brand, it's hard. What I ended up doing was using the name and registering on sites even though I don't use them. Like Facebook, for instance. I don't have a Facebook. I have a Facebook account, but I don't use Facebook. But I registered my name in case in a year or two I decide that I want to use Facebook. It's ready to go, and I know I can use it. That's an option if you ever do decide to rebrand. Just make sure you register on all of the websites you think you're going to use, even if you don't use them now immediately. And that way it's held for you if you ever decide you do want to use it. But you don't need too many to be on every single piece of social media on the planet, really. All you're going to end up doing is creating a lot more work for yourself. That's my opinion anyway. Because I know that with my Twitter account, my Google Plus account, my YouTube account, generally those 3 pieces of social media keep me busy enough without having to add a Pinterest account and a Facebook account and all the others. So. Otherwise, all you end up doing with all your time is updating social media. You know, this is an example of edit mesh before I convert it to edit poly. You see the amount of options you have here? Not many. There's no smoothing groups. You can't do much with the UVs themselves. But as soon as I convert it to an edit poly, this is with Synergy. You have a lot more options, slicing options, smoothing options, subdiv options. That's why you should always convert to edit and work in edit poly when you're creating meshes. Okay, let's copy our UVs across. And let's grab a new texture map, which will be this one just here. You don't like social media at all. Yeah, who cares what time Bob got a soda? That's exactly right. And that's not what I use my social media for. I don't tell people what I have for breakfast. I don't take pictures of my food. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people like to see that sort of thing, but that's not for me. And that's not what I use social media for. But then I'm generally probably a lot older than most of you guys that use social media anyway. And also from a privacy point of view, you were saying about your identity. You really want to be careful what you put on social media. That goes for employment as well, because they will check your social media accounts. Trust me, they will. They do. And even if you make things private, there are companies out there that will do a complete check on you and get access to that information, even if you've made it private in your social media account. I don't think we copied the UVs across on this one, by the look of it. Maybe we did. You got a Facebook finally, just to keep in touch with family and friends, yep. You must copy and paste this post or you'll go to hell. Now, I'm looking at this here and I'm seeing this is not right. This texture map is not being applied correctly. And that's happening because in some way, shape or form, this UV model, the UV map is different to the underlying polygons are different to these. Now I could go in and fix it through the UVs, but an easier way to do it, and the way I'm going to do it, is just to move a mesh around. So that one is this one here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm going to grab this mesh just here. Just this mesh. Normals, oh, it could be. Let's see if the normals are flipped. We'll check that now. I might put an edit normals on top of it. No. Let me throw a normal modifier on top of it. Yeah, I don't think it's the normals. I think it's the UV map itself. Looking at that, it looks like the UV map is not being assigned correctly. It's not the normals. That's okay, we can fix it quite easily. And we're going to fix it by removing it. I'm going to copy this one here. I'm going to jump into my top view for it. It was a good guess though for the normals. That can sometimes be a problem. Be the problem, but not in this case. I'm going to hold down the shift key and move a copy over here. I'm going to make a copy, not an instance. You could instance it, but I'm going to copy it. I just have to find it. There it is. And my off center here. I'm going to check to see if my center point is not correct, so I'm going to fix that too. I have the object selected. I'm going to go into the hierarchy tab and affect pivot. I'm going to center the pivot. And that'll just help me to do the rotation a bit more accurately. You'll also notice that when I copied that, even though I copied it from a textured piece of geometry, it's lost the texture map. We'll fix that up too in just a minute. Just gotta find this one here I'm replacing. Yep. So again, I'm just going to zoom in here on my top viewport a bit. Move it over. And it's going to be this one here. Nine times out of 10 with this, where you can copy it instead of trying to fix the UVs, it's always quicker and easier. Instead of trying to get in there and fix up all those UVs or repainting that piece of geometry, which is probably what would have to be done. Yeah, well, flip normal sometimes will work. That was a good suggestion, a good thing to try, because I don't like UVing either personally. One of the least fun parts of 3D modeling for me. And that's why I'm going to do it this way instead of going in there and fixing the UVs. I'm just going to replace the entire piece of geometry. Now you see here it's really difficult for me to, because of this overhang, to find out when I'm going to be in the right position. So I'm going to select both of those objects and I'm going to go into isolation mode. This is another good thing with isolation mode. Now it's really simple and easy and quick to line them up and replace them. I'm going to call this one support fix. I'm going to call this one old. Support old. That's just so I can, when I go to select one to delete it, I know which one is which. You also see that the viewport updates a lot more quickly because you don't have all that geometry in the way. Usually the shading is wrong on the viewport if the normals are wrong. Yeah, that's true. Even before you do throw a texture map on, if the normals are incorrect, you usually will see it. It's going to also jump into my side view here. Okay, I'm going to select the old one, because I named them I know which one is which, that's the wrong one. That's the right one, again delete that. And we'll exit isolation mode. And again I'm going to jump full screen here. Alright, let's try this again. Let's select our original. Open up our channel info. I'm going to copy our UVs. They should already be pasted in there because we copied it from the other one, but we'll just make sure. And our texture pops right back. Okay. Now we can continue on. Let's just save our file here because you never know with Max when it's going to crash and we don't want to have to have done all that work and then lose it. Even though Max does do an auto save, or it tries to. Never trust it. Just a good habit to get into, to save regularly, manually. While that's saving, we don't have a lot more left to do of these supports now. We're nearly back around at the front again. And again, with these tall columns, I'm going to just pick up the texture map I used up here. I'm going to texture up probably 5 versions again, and we'll repeat those around the outside too. And again, this one is already attached, so let's try copying our UVs across. And let's assign a texture map to it. So we worked with that one last, which was this one here. We'll move to this one. Again, we've got that problem with the UV. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to replace it. Before I do that though, I don't want to move this one, so I'm just going to move a copy out. Again, just by holding down the shift key. And again, we've lost our texture map, but it'll pop back in just a sec. We're going to select both of those and go into isolation mode.